We just don't want to put like a marketing name on something. We want to show people this is what we've done, this is how we've done it, this is why it matters.
So right now, where are we?
We're here at KEF
of America.
So a while ago, a few of us at Headphones.com got the opportunity to visit KEF, the well-known speaker manufacturer. Now, KEF is of course a British speaker company, and we didn't go all the way to the UK. We were instead invited to their North American facilities, deep in the heart of the magical and mysterious wonderland known as New Jersey. VMS is trying to pack everything into an egg.
I overestimated the size of my egg.
It's just gonna like launch the seats forward.
Takes a little firmness.
How many 6-foot+ people can we fit into a Chevy Bolt? This is absurd. You're not gonna fit it. Oh God! Just push me in and slam the door. All right, I'm in. So this is where we live now.
So this is sheer comfort.
I'm about to drive to KEF America, and there's Andrew Park riding in the lap of luxury. You're sitting in the front seat. You have a little bit of leg room, and then Taryn is just God, I can
There's
only
his head.
see your head.
Where's his body?
One with the bags now.
His body's in the trunk.
Thanks for riding with me, guys.
Now, you may be wondering, what's a company called Headphones.com doing visiting a speaker brand? Well, the answer to that is that we're getting into speakers now. In fact, our company was actually originally founded because my boss Andrew aspired to one day get a pair of KEF speakers, and so this was particularly special for him. And yes, everybody in the hobby has to be named Andrew. That's just how this works. Andrews everywhere.
We're here at KEF, and this is really special because KEF's actually the speaker company whose speaker I wanted when I started the company. My wife did not want me to have the speakers, and so I thought, hey, I'm going to start a whole company and be around speakers and headphones and gear. And it was actually the LS50s that I wanted so badly, so we're coming full circle.
But mainly, this was an opportunity for us to hear various KEF products within their lineup, including the highly regarded LS50 and LS60 series, but we also learned so much more about their technology in general, and so that's what today's video is going to be all about. Now, for those who are unaware, KEF, otherwise known as Kent Engineering and Foundry, is a brand that's recognized in both the high-end luxury lifestyle crowds and the more hardcore audiophile and measurements-focused enthusiast audience as well. The former, of course, because their products have a particularly unique design aesthetic to them, making them nice to look at. You have a nice-looking pair of speakers that also functions as home decor. But they also perform well acoustically, so much so that they're also one of the few brands that publishes their acoustic research, which they're very proud of course, and all kinds of additional data to do with the performance of their products. And yes, I ended up buying a pair, but we'll get to that later.
So we're here to check out the KEF line of speakers.
The everything.
Yeah.
The first thing we heard was actually a set of ceiling speakers.
Yeah, we walked in, and normally, like when you go to places where there's ceiling speakers, it's like, oh, that's cool, there's speakers in the ceiling, but you don't really think about the sound quality all that much. But with this, it was like, holy crap.
Yeah.
I was super impressed. I mean, that was one of the most
Yeah.
surprising things to me, because it was like, I would never have expected that from any sort of built-in speakers anywhere.
And as like a person who's really into like surround sound and Atmos and all that, I would absolutely consider those ceiling speakers.
Then the next thing we did was we got a chance to actually check out some of the speakers that they had set up, in particular the LS50 Metas, which is the current line of LS50s. But the big feature one was they called it the Blade.
Yeah.
That was crazy, the big red ones. My favorite setup was the LS60s, which is kind of a remarkably small setup, like kind of really
very
thin.
Yeah, surprisingly thin.
But unbelievably punchy and powerful sounding in the bass down low. Yeah, and actually the bass performance of the speakers that we heard today was also really interesting, because it was a much more kind of linear kind of bass, very tight and controlled. I don't know how to describe that, but like if you're used to, bass in headphones, like a particular bass boost or something like that, it wasn't quite like that. It was more just like you could hear everything kind of evenly all the way down.
It was very present.
And very precise.
I will say the sub bass stood out on the Blades for sure.
Oh, on the Blades, yeah, I mean, that was ridiculous.
Yeah. I mean, they're not cheap,
No.
but at that price point,
Yeah.
you would expect the sub bass to be
Yeah.
pretty good, and it is.
Yeah, but again, for me, like the highlight was, of course, listening to the LS50 metas, because
Right.
those are the ones that I'm most likely going to end up buying.
Much more
It's like more
attainable,
reasonable.
yeah.
More reasonable for me, for my price
and
range.
like apartment friendly.
Oh, totally,
yeah.
right, yeah.
So, what's so special about KEF's tech? Well, I was able to sit down and chat with their North American VP, David Kroll, as well as product manager, Ben Hagens, who was happy to go deep into the weeds on all the nerdy technical stuff that I'm super interested in. So, big thanks to those guys for their time. But let's hear from them.
KEF was founded in 1961 by Raymond Cook, a former BBC engineer. We're right in the middle of hops country in Kent, England. It's kind of neat because there's hops farms and hops drying towers all around the countryside near where KEF is located. He had an idea that by using computers for the first time to measure a loudspeaker, he could build a more precise, more repeatable loudspeaker. When he started, what came down the production line had wide tolerance latitude from what they designed as the standard in the laboratory. And what he figured out is by measuring and matching drivers, measuring and matching crossovers, he could, on the production line, for the first time in loudspeaker manufacturing, build a perfect reference to the lab standard. And he early on coined his top speakers the reference series, because you were buying something that was perfectly referenced to what the engineers designed the lab standard. A lot of what he did back then has now, as computers and measuring and microphones and sensors all come down, become standard operating practice anywhere loudspeakers are manufactured, or anywhere it should be anywhere they're manufactured. From that, we've continued to build on the engineering. So it's not just in the measuring and manufacture, it's going into the development, it's going into using very advanced computer modeling for all aspects of the loudspeaker. And we are constantly inventing new processes to improve. Last year with the Unicore technology, for the first time in many years, a completely new way to actually construct a low frequency driver or a subwoofer to allow you to get more performance out of a smaller cabinet. So engineering remains at the heart of everything that we do, and every design starts with the engineering.
So our technology, which we're very, very well known for, is the UniQ driver. And this is a driver technology that we developed back in 1988 and is a point source. So the idea is that just like the human voice, everything comes from a single point and emanates out, as opposed to your more traditional drivers where you've got, say, separate tweeter, separate mid-range, separate bass, or a coaxial, which is very, very similar, but sits in front or behind the mid-range. And over the years, we've looked to improve upon the technology, but the basis has always been the same. It's been to have this really, really wide, controlled dispersion of sound rather than having a very, very narrow sweet spot. So we're trying to cover as many people in the listening area as possible. In terms of dispersion, you can have a speaker which is very, very narrow dispersion, which means that, generally you're going to have to angle them in to one position in the room, and that person's going to get the best possible experience. Right? Listening to music and watching film isn't necessarily something that you'll do by yourself. So we wanted to create something which much, much wider dispersion, so that we're covering as many people as possible with the best possible experience and share that experience. Narrow directivity speakers are very, very similar to headphones in a way, in that you're almost removing, well, with headphones, you are removing the room. With narrow directivity, you are, again, in a similar way, you're trying to remove as much of the room as possible. With wide, even dispersion, like with the UniQ, we work with the room as opposed to working against the room. So this gives us much, much better imaging, huge soundstage, very immersive soundstage, to a greater number of people in the room. This is an in-studio recording, so single microphone, and in order to get the levels right, they had to put the musicians at different distances from the microphone. So not only are you going to hear Hironi's, just her dynamic control when she goes from sort of playing lightly to really hammering onto the keys, you're actually going to get that sense of space. I think one of the really important things that came out of Raymond Cook, who was the founder of KEF, he was always very, very cognizant of the fact that a loudspeaker must do this, must do this, must do this. So frequency response, temporal accuracy. It must do this within the constraints of a normal room. And a normal room is not the same as a studio. So we do tend to have a slightly downwards tilt into the high frequency because the room is going to help bring that back in. So the listening tests are actually done in a very realistic room. It's why here at the KML, our main room in the back is very much a realistic situation. And so we're looking for flat, but with a slight downward tint. But we're also looking for a controlled dispersion. So as you move off axis, the balance of sound imperceptibly changes until you are significantly off axis. Which is, I don't know if you guys were listening a bit earlier, moving around, and I hope you guys kind of picked up on that, that you could be significantly different places in the room, but still get the same balance of sound and experience. So that's what we're kind of looking for. But we're looking for low distortion. We don't want the cabinet to talk. We don't want it to sing. We really want the drivers to, as accurately as possible, recreate or transform electricity into moving air. One of my favorite quotes from Raymond Cook finishes off with, when KEF returns music to its rightful habituation, your ears and mind, we aim to do so in the most natural way we can, without drama, without exaggeration, without artifice. And that without artifice is, I think, absolute key. One of the really interesting things that I find as a KEF employee is how open we are in terms of talking about our technology and the science and the whys and the wherefores behind it. And, as mentioned, we do publish the spinorama plots, we do publish dispersion plots, we do white papers for the products, we do AES conferences and papers. We're not just learning about the science of speakers, we're learning about the science of sound. And engineering is at the heart of our name. It's what the E in KEF stands for. And we are extremely proud of our achievements and what we've done with our products. And we want to show people, we just don't want to put like a marketing name on something. We want to show people, this is what we've done, this is how we've done it, this is why it matters. We're giving an account of ourselves into the public through the white papers, through the spins. And I think a lot of people do appreciate that.
It was really interesting to hear about the way that their technology works, where it's built around being used in spaces, in real places where you ordinarily have so many uncontrollable things like the room and what's going on in the room, and
this is a normal room.
Yeah,
it's not a normal room, but like it's a normal room.
I wish that was a normal room.
Right. It's a room that's not like covered in sound treatment everywhere. It's a room that's designed to be like
lived in.
Yeah, realistic. There's a couch, and the walls are not even. There's one side that goes back in and one side with like built-ins and shelves, and then like
Yeah.
a kitchen area, and yeah, it's a more realistic space. It's not like they're trying to go like out of their way to like, I'm going to treat every single space so you have a blissful, perfect experience here that you can't recreate at home.
Yeah.
Like this is a realistic way that people are going to listen to these speakers.
Yeah, which is dope that they're going for that.
Yeah.
Also really interesting to me was hearing from their product expert, Ben, who went super deep on a number of technical topics. And to talk about like, you know, how they publish, you know, the white papers, they publish their measurements, they go into incredible detail on, you know, what they're doing. And I sort of asked them about that, and it's because they're proud of what they're doing, which is
Yeah.
super dope.
Another thing that I actually didn't know about before we came here was kind of the history of KEF, because I know they've been around,
Yeah.
but it was kind of surprising to me learning a bit more about like where they came
Yeah.
from and their roots and how they got to where they are here.
They've been around since the 60s,
Yeah.
and so they've been doing this and kind of evolving their technology over generation, basically.
Ben is the guy who's been kind of running us through a lot of this stuff, and he's been literally hosting us here and answering our questions enthusiastically for hours. We've been here all day today.
Yeah, like I thought I was getting into some overly technical questions, and he just like doubled down and just like went like the next step further, and I was like,
Yeah.
oh my God.
Yeah, he never got tired of talking about it. He's
Yeah.
very enthusiastic about the product, which is really cool, and he's super, super knowledgeable about it.
You know what I want to do? I want to take those LS50 metas,
Yeah.
or I guess any of them. I want to set them up in the studio and measure them on the B&K 5128, and just so that
I would
we
be
in the
curious.
headphone world can get a comparison of how this
Yeah.
sounds compared to headphones.
Well, now you can.
Now I can.
So I learned a lot during this visit, and I definitely have a better understanding of what KEF brings to the table as far as their technology is concerned. Now, being the headphone nerd that I am, I tend to look at this stuff through my personal use case for speakers, and maybe you can relate to this as well. But there are a number of reasons why I've always focused on headphones, or at least traditionally focused on headphones. One is, of course, that not everybody is into my esoteric jazz, and using headphones means that I don't have to inflict that upon the world. It helps with my relationships with people around me. But more importantly, it's because I've never had a proper space to really focus on speakers. I live in a small apartment where the main living space is far from ideal. And this is really where I see KEF's technology being more accommodating of a realistic living situation. You don't have to always be fighting your space and looking for the sweet spot to get the ideal sound. I have to imagine that most people, myself included, aren't catering their primary living spaces to their audiophile tendencies. And even if they want to, maybe there are other people around who maybe don't let them do that. KEF's focus on exceptionally good dispersion means that not being perfectly on axis to the speaker is totally fine. In fact, this was one of the most shocking and almost bizarre effects that we noticed when we were listening to the various different speakers in their lineup at the KEF facility there. I was used to always trying to find the sweet spot where a particular set of speakers would sound, at their best. And with the KEF speakers, there really is no sweet spot. Like, DMS and I kept moving around to different areas of the room to see how far off axis we could go before it was noticeable. And it was surprising how much we had to move to hear a difference, or to hear a meaningful difference. Now, earlier I told you that I ended up buying a pair of KEF speakers. So which ones are they? For my situation, I ended up going with the LS50 Wireless 2, which works great for my living situation. But if you're looking for a review of those speakers, I'm going to recommend a video by Aaron from Aaron's Audio Corner, and I'll link that in the description. That's basically how I feel about them as well. He has all the appropriate measurement equipment that we don't currently have to measure this stuff, but we'll need to get into that as well. The only thing is that I don't really plan on adding a subwoofer to the system for the sake of my neighbor's sanity. I don't want to be a jerk to them unless they're doing that, and then we can fight. If you're like me and you've traditionally focused just on headphones and IEMs, but you're considering maybe what it might be like to go into speakers, I'm going to highly recommend checking out our Discord. We have a dedicated speaker channel there, and this is where we've already started discussing this with various other folks who have, speaker systems like this. What I've been having fun with is measuring speakers on headphone test equipment just to kind of see how it translates. But of course, those don't have, the full torso or anything like that. So, we need to kind of figure out how to accommodate that. But that's essentially going to do it for this video. As I mentioned, if you're interested in additional speaker content, let us know down in the comments below if you want to see more of this, or what speakers you'd like to see reviews of. That always helps give us a sense of, what to try and prioritize. Anyways, that does it for me in this video. I hope you guys enjoyed this quick look at KEF and their various different technologies, and I'm going to see you guys in the next video. Bye for now.